Okay, so I'm just gonna hide myself here. And then you can start, and they both know that Mahmoud already interviewed Chris today. So Mahmoud is just more interested in more Ghana information.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
So great. So I'm just gonna hide myself. Okay, you can go whenever you want.
The most frightening part of this particular publication has to do with the fact that most of this, the mortality rate, I mean, associated with this particular bacterial infections, was very high in sub-Saharan Africa, where my country is located, and so that is the most devastating part. And it means that this, I mean, what I want to know about this particular analysis done by your institution is to look more specifically on the figures in Ghana. I want us to look at the figures in Ghana and look at the pathogens, the bacterial pathogens that were recorded in Ghana, and how many people died from these particular pathogens, specifically in Ghana. And so we can make some comparison with I think you've mentioned in your analysis about this tuberculosis. You also talked about malaria and other stuff. So I'll be glad if you introduce yourselves, and then we take it from there, and then look at the break the figures down to each of the pathogens, bacterial pathogens. That would be very easy for people to understand and get to know the seriousness of this particular analysis.
I can go first. Hi, wonderful to meet you, Mahmoud. Thank you so much for your questions. We're excited to go over these results with you. My name is Athia Gray, and I am a post-bachelor fellow that works on the team. I've been on the team for approximately 2.5 years now, and I mostly model the infectious syndrome burden.
And yeah, I will also shortly introduce myself. Thank you, Mahmoud, for inviting me. And I'm an affiliate associate professor at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. Started in a team approximately 1 year ago as a Fulbright fellow, and worked on this paper, also on some other papers related to antimicrobial resistance. And yeah, I'm happy to go also help Othia to go through the results and to show you some specific figures.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Trovic and Gray. I hope you've mentioned the name right. Gray, so what are the figures? What are the figures look like? I mean, with regards to Ghana, what are the figures?
That's a great question. I can share my screen if that will be useful and show our new, oh, it looks like the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, here, let me do that. It should work now, Athia.
Great, thank you.
Apologies.
So oh, no worries at all. Can you see my screen? So this is our new, great. This is our new visualization tool, which will be public as of tomorrow. And we can see I've filtered to Ghana right now, but you can see many different countries. And we can see here, just to orient ourselves, for sepsis deaths, there were 88,000 people died in 2019 in Ghana from sepsis. And then that burden breaks down into bacterial infections, which is the most related to the paper that we've just released, with 49,000 deaths. And now we can look at the pathogens themselves.
So let's look at the sepsis. Can we go back a bit for people to better understand, those without science background? I mean, what exactly does it talk about?
That's a great question. So sepsis, as we define it in this paper, and then the 2 papers that we published, is a life-threatening bodily response to infection characterized by an organ dysfunction. So this could be someone that has died and sepsis has been listed in their death certificate, or this is someone that has died and had an infection code in their death certificate, as well as an organ dysfunction code in their death certificate.
Okay.
And just to add,
so it's from based on this graph, 49,600 people died of bacterial infections in Ghana. Yes. So based on these figures, sorry, we are seeing bacterial infections, 49,600 deaths. Doesn't mean that 49,600 people, 49,066 deaths. Does it mean that this number of people died in 2019 as a result of bacterial infections in Ghana?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so how about the resistance associated? I mean, and then the resistance attributable.
Tomislav, do you want to? I know you had something to say. Do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, I can shortly explain. So within all of these bacterial infections that caused almost 50,000 deaths, there was a fraction of resistant bacteria that was found in these deaths, and we call those associated with resistance. And here we had 25,309 deaths. But also there were a certain fraction of bacterial infections that were actually, we can consider them as basically causative agents of these deaths. And we call these attributable deaths. And these are 5,923 deaths. So this is a stepwise approach. And you've seen the number of sepsis is higher than the number of bacterial infections because sepsis can be also caused by fungi and some other organisms. And this is how we stratify all this in this neat tool that we present in this tool. So I think this is really understandable for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, right. So we can look at the pathogens now, and I think you wanted to say something on that.
Yes, so we can look at the pathogens here. Would you like to see the rate per 100,000 in the population or the number?
You can talk about, I mean, both, any of them. I mean,
yeah, we can go with number to start.
Talk about the numbers. Yes, we can talk about the numbers. Yeah.
Yes, and so we're looking at deaths, all ages in Ghana for across all the infectious syndromes. And so we see that the pink is bacteria. So we can see the actual names of the pathogens below. And if you hover over them, you can see the full name. So we start with Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is not presented in the paper we are publishing. However, next followed, the rest are involved that are bacteria. So we have Staphylococcus aureus is the next most deadly with 5,849 deaths occurring in 2019 in Ghana, followed by an other pathogen aggregate, and then Klebsiella pneumonia with 4,864 deaths. Streptococcus pneumoniae is next with 4,779 deaths, and E. coli with 3,698 deaths. And so on and so forth. We have viruses as well, also not published in the paper, and then fungi and a polymicrobial category.
So we are seeing, where is HIV? Do we have HIV in this coming? Do we have it here?
We do not have HIV in this visualization tool. So Thomas will definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but that's included in viruses.
That so it falls under the virus, the displays, I don't know. I think there's virus here.
Actually, I believe I misspoke.
The virus. This the number, the fifth or the seventh one.
Yeah, there are several viruses. Some are specific and some are aggregated. Because this analysis is a subset of the global burden of disease study, HIV is an underlying cause of death, and this assessment is of pathogens specifically as they participate in underlying causes of death as infections, and then also as intermediate causes of death as infections. And so HIV is not depicted here. This is instead looking at pathogens that are causing these infections, bacterial pathogens specifically from our paper.
Okay, so the highest in Ghana was tuberculosis.
Yes.
In 2019, more people died of tuberculosis than any other pathogen or any other disease in Ghana.
I can double check that compared against HIV. I think after this, as HIV is not depicted in this visualization tool, but Mycobacterium tuberculosis is definitely caused the greatest number of deaths compared to the other pathogens in our analysis, which is Staphylococcus aureus, Klebsiella pneumonia, etc., but not including HIV.
So we're looking at I'm looking at this analysis, the analysis you have done. Or look at this, we can say that based on your analysis, more people died of tuberculosis than any other of the pathogens or the bacterial infections that you've analyzed. Yeah.
Yes, and if I can pull up GBD compare if we want to look at the HIV numbers for Ghana in 2019, if that's useful.
Yeah, it's very important because you see, the reason why I'm asking this question is that more attention has been paid to some diseases. I mean, meanwhile, these things you talk about are not being taken serious in our parts of the world. And so at the end of the day, see a lot of people dying because of these, but we pay attention to diseases that have received a lot of research funds and other stuff.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Okay, so we have HIV/AIDS. This is the global burden of disease value, which we do compare to in our paper. We have Ghana that is being listed for all ages, both, and then number.
This is Ghana?
This is Ghana, yes. And we are seeing in 2019, 14,620 deaths. And then if we compare that to our microbe visualization tool, we see Mycobacterium tuberculosis with 10,222 deaths, and then Staphylococcus aureus with approximately, it looks like a little less than half, 5,849 deaths. If we go back and compare that to the all bacterial infections, though, it far exceeds HIV. We can start over.
Yeah.
So in 2019 in Ghana, we see that from the global burden of disease work, there were 14,620 deaths. So this is approximately 4,000 more than Mycobacterium tuberculosis deaths in the same year. But if we compare that to all bacterial infections far exceeded with essentially 49,000 or nearly 50,000 deaths having occurred in 2019. If we look at the pathogens.
All right.
Oh, go ahead.
What does it mean to have all of these figures that you've mentioned with a country like Ghana, about 30 million people? What does it mean to the country? What does it mean to the future of this country with these figures that we are getting?
That's a great question. I'm sure Tomislav will also have an answer to this, but it's indicative that there needs to be more funding resource, not necessarily from Ghana, but potentially from other actors hoping to look into preventative measures to produce vaccines and really fund all of these pathogens that, while not quite at the level of HIV in terms of the deaths that they cause, there's still a large number and completely significant, nearly 6,000 deaths from Staphylococcus aureus, as well as Klebsiella pneumoniae, all of these pathogens that have not necessarily received the same amount of global funding and attention in public health initiatives.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, even if you combine the first 3 or 4 pathogens, they already exceed the number of deaths caused by HIV, considering what we showed in the tool. This is something where not only a much more investments should be pursued in the vaccine,
so if
but
we
also,
get, yeah,
but also infection control.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, also infection control and other important preventative measures. And we think like identifying these pathogens, which was not done before, would also open the door for more concrete policy decisions regarding specific pathogens, because each of them has its own specificities and some measures can be tailored exactly to them. So I think this is why we think this work is really important in that regard.
So if we look at these figures, I mean, which was, I mean, recorded in 2019, do we expect, we know this came 2 years, I think 2019, 2020, I mean, 3 years after this incidences occurred. I mean, do we expect to see these numbers increasing now that we have recorded, or we have issues of COVID-19 among others? Do we expect to see these numbers going up in the next few years? And should we expect any analysis in the next few months? I know you've just done this, but it will be important to have another one in the next few months to be able to know whether the numbers have increased or it has reduced.
That's a great question. So as for your first question about whether there was, we're expecting burden to increase over time, it's definitely possible, especially given the COVID-19 pandemic. That is a virus, and we are hoping to create a more comprehensive analysis soon that also incorporates viruses and fungi and not just bacteria. We are currently actively trying to put together a time series so that we can see the overall trend of these deaths and from each pathogen from 1990 well into the future, hopefully to at least 2021. And we are hoping to work on that through 2023 and potentially publish within 2023. And we are also actively looking into forecasting measures through the forecasting team at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, and hope to be able to give a much more comprehensive result and answer than we can right now.
I know the countries involved. Have you done any collaboration to get it widely known to them? Because there are countries that are not even aware of these figures or these figures, and they don't even know they are recording some of these deaths. Have you made that attempts to ensure that health agencies or health authorities are informed about this development?
Okay, if I may go first. So our first intent was to publish the global results, and this is what we did with our global study on antimicrobial resistance and our global study on pathogen distribution. But immediately we delved deep into country-level results, which we now will reveal to the public when this tool or visualization tool goes public as well this week. And also we started to draft some policy briefs that will be aimed to specific countries, to their ministries, to their governments and governmental organizations, which will inform them about what are the dominant pathogens, what are the dominant resistant pathogens, and also maybe some suggestions of some measures that could be done and pursued in order to tackle this threat, both from the overall burden of pathogens in their country and also the resistant burden of pathogens in their country as well. So yeah, this is something that we also envision that this will have a policy impact and hopefully improve the situation in many countries around the world.
So let's finally, I want us to look at the ages. I want to look at the ages, if we can look at the ages, and then we'll look at the sex too. How many people? Yes, the sex.
For this view, we do not have ages available. However, we could look at the infectious syndromes. This has ages available, if that's still of interest. Can zoom in here. And then let me also see if the antimicrobial resistance tab has ages. I don't believe that it does, but let's just check. No, it does not. Is infectious syndromes okay for all age results?
This for Ghana, okay. Yeah.
Oh, and this is looking at resistance, slightly different, but we do have all of the drug and antibiotic and pathogen combinations here in this heat map.
Okay. Those are attributed to bacterial antimicrobial resistance by pathogen drug combination. Okay. I can see the ages.
Yeah, unfortunately, we only have all ages currently available at this time, but we're hoping to update this soon.
Okay, what are these? What are these ones mean? What do they mean?
Yeah, that's a great question.
We're looking at the deaths. As you can see, deaths here, but the colors has to do with that.
Yeah, so this is a heat map depicting the pathogens. We have the pathogens on this essentially y-axis, and then we have the antibiotics that they might be treated with on the x-axis. And so when we hover over this, we can take this Acinetobacter baumannii and its resistance to at least one or more antibiotics, for example. And we can see that there were 419 deaths in Ghana for this specific set of Acinetobacter baumannii resistant to at least one antibiotic. And then we can look at deaths due to Acinetobacter baumannii resistant to specific antibiotics. So for example, aminoglycosides had 34 deaths. Resistance to anti-pseudomonas penicillin or beta-lactamase inhibitors, 187 deaths. So this is very zoomed in on antimicrobial resistance and the individual combinations by pathogen and antibiotic. So E. coli, 934 deaths, or Klebsiella pneumonia.
That's the highest. The highest is pneumonia.
Let me make sure. Yes, it does look as though it is for resistance.
That's 1.2K.
Yes.
Okay.
And these are deaths that are for which antimicrobial resistance is directly responsible for. So we call these deaths attributable to bacterial antimicrobial resistance.
If we look at associated with, which is the slightly larger option, this is where resistance was present, but we can't necessarily it caused the death. We see that the numbers increase. And so we still have Klebsiella pneumoniae leading with 4,600 deaths that were associated with resistance, followed by Streptococcus pneumoniae with 4,161, or 4,200 deaths.
Okay, so let's look at the overall figure for Ghana. The overall figure of death for the entire country in 2019. Do we have that?
By which the pathogens again, or the one of the bubbles with sepsis and bacterial infections?
The bacterial infections, pathogens, bacterial pathogens. Yeah. Okay. I am looking at the total number. The total number, not the individual figures.
I see.
Okay. Okay. Is the total number?
Yes, this is the total number for Ghana. Sepsis, bacterial infections, and then we can also consider resistance for both of the values that we have.
Is that is the total number? Is it 88,000?
Yes, so this is 88,000. This would be inclusive of bacteria, fungi, and viruses. And then the 49,000 number is bacteria only.
Okay. So we can say that 649 people died of, bacteria pathogen, right?
Which number died of bacterial pathogens?
This say?
Sorry, 49,000 died of bacterial pathogens. Yes.
Okay.
And the heat map we were looking at was specifically looking at resistance.
Okay. So we can see that out of the death were caused by bacterial infections, and the remaining 45 were caused by other pathogens.
Yes.
Such as virus, fungi, and parasite. Do we have we're getting the breakdown in the graph that you mentioned, you've shown earlier. I was thinking if we have these figures, the virus, the fungi, and the parasite as separate figures, in the analysis.
Currently not at this time, but we're actively.
The reason why I asked these figures is because we would want to engage some other people too as well. And so if we have these figures, you find it very easy to explain it to them to understand. So rather than using the percentages, people would want to know the actual figures to also be able to, make their informed decision. That's why I asked that question. I know pathogens, virus, and all these things, fungi and bacterial fall under pathogens, but if we have those figures, it will be also be good for some people who have don't have that time to go and do research on these things. So make it simple. We would like to make it very simple for them to understand.
Tomislav, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this plot is probably currently the best that we have available for that, as it does depict all of the possible types of pathogens. However, it does not show the aggregate categories together. It does show the individual pathogen names. Some of these are aggregated, such as viruses of lower respiratory infections and meningitis, and fungi as a larger category, but some are definitely.
Yeah, I get it now. This picture, this picture is good. I get it now.
Yeah, and for now we delve deep into bacterial pathogens, but very soon in the future we'll also make a more detailed breakdown, also fungal pathogens and parasitic ones. So, but for now, this publication, from which most of this graph stems for, was concentrating on bacterial pathogens. So this is why we have most detail for bacterial pathogens, but very soon we will have much more granular data for also fungal pathogens and parasitic ones and viral ones as well.
My final question has to do with what is the way forward? What do we need to do as a country to be able to reduce the numbers? I know we cannot prevent any death from these cases, but I'm sure we can reduce the numbers. What exactly can we do as a country to reduce the numbers?
Yeah, if you want, I can tackle it first. So I think this is the first step to identify where the biggest threat lies. And also, I think there are several steps that needs to be pursued. Of course, first, before recommending anything, there is a small caveat. You need to know and understand the situation of every country really good. And I can't go into details regarding that, but there are some universal things in regards to these pathogens that are listed here. And first of all, this is strengthening infection control. But one of the most important things is capacity building, both for laboratories to track these diseases much more better, to have much more robust data in order to make even better results, but also predictions. And Althea mentioned like forecasting as one of our future endeavors. And for this, we will need a really robust data. But only if you have a strong data, then you can have and create specific policy measures. And I think when you have such high infection burden, like adequate infection control measures and preventative measures should be undertaken. But each country and leadership of each country knows the resources that are available the best, and the partnership with other countries and what can be done in that regard. For now, we are still putting all the pieces together, and we can give general recommendations, but very soon we will be able, I hope, to make specific policy recommendations in this regard.
Thank you so much. Your final words?
Thank you so much, Mahmoud. And thank you so much, Althea and Tomislav.
All right, thank you so much, Pauline. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad, and really thank you to Althea and Tomislav for jumping on Zoom at the last minute. So we really appreciate it. And
It was a pleasure.